This is a second example of using a large sample hypothesis test, a z-test. Our problem is a polling group believes there is a difference in the proportion of registered Republicans in favor of a current hot topic social issue versus registered Democrats. However, they do not know which group is more in favor of the issue. They speak to 1,021 Republicans and find that 534 are in favor, while only 439 Democrats out of 976 polled are in favor. What conclusion do you reach? Test at the 0.05 level of significance. First step, let's set up our hypothesis. In this case, we're making decisions about the proportion of Republicans in favor versus the proportion of Democrats in favor of this hot topic issue. We put the equality in the null, which means inequality is in the alternative. Or another way to write this, which I prefer, is to look at the difference. Difference in proportion being 0 under the null versus the difference not being equal to 0 under the alternative. It's two-sided because we don't have a intuition on which one is more in favor. We just want to see if they're different. Alpha was given to us, 0.05. Our test statistic is going to be, in this case now, our rejection criteria is going to be, I'm going to use an absolute value. I'm going to write it below because I don't have enough room. I'm looking at the absolute value of the difference of these guys being greater than some value k under the null where these guys are equal to each other. And I want that to equal, since it's two-sided, here's what's different. Since it's two-sided, I have to put the area in both tails. So if I were to draw a picture of this, under the null, it'll be centered at 0. I'm going to reject if it's much greater or much less than these values. The overall error has to be alpha, so that means that each tail, I'm going to want alpha over 2. That's why I'm going to use alpha over 2. Need the distribution of this difference, again by the central limit theorem. It's going to be approximately normal. Under the null, the two proportions are equal to each other, so their difference would be 0 under the null. And then the standard dev is going to be the proportion of Republicans times Q Republicans over the number, and likewise with Democrats. And I'm almost ready to go. One last thing that we need to note is that since under the null these proportions are equal, I need to get estimates of the proportion of Republicans, proportion of Democrats voting for the standard dev. Common way to do that is under the null, since they're equal, I'll just average them together. So I'll take the number of Republicans voting plus the number of Democrats, and I'll divide that by the total number polled of Republicans and Democrats. And that'll give me an estimate of P, which I'll call the P combined. That's what I'm going to use. In our case, if we put the numbers in, we have 534 Republicans in favor, 439, all over 1,021 plus 976, and that's going to be my combined. And I'm almost there. I just need to now find the k value. And that's going to be Q norm. And again, it's the area to the left, so if the area to the right is half of 0.05, area to the left would be 0.975. Mean is 0. And then I'm going to use the P combined, and that's, well, I'll show you in R in a second. So let's go ahead and open R and calculate our values. So the first thing I'm going to need is that P combined. I'm going to assign a variable called P combined, and that's equal to 534 plus 439 divided by 1021 plus my 976. Be combined, and if we wanted to see that, we could just ask R to spit it back to us. Okay, P combined 0.4875 is my estimate of the proportion. And finally, I need my Q norm command divided by the number of Republicans. And I'm tired of typing, so I'm going to just copy this whole command again. And the number of Democrats is 976. Make sure I have all my parentheses. Looks good. So that's my rejection criteria. .0438. I need to now calculate my sample value. I'll go back into R and calculate that. So for the Republicans, that's going to be 534 divided by 1021, 52%. And for the Democrats, I have 439 divided by 976, 44%. We'll want to take the difference of those two guys. You gotta be careful, it was Republicans subtracted from Democrats. Subtracted Democrats from the Republicans. And that value is 0.0732. Which is greater than K. I will reject H naught. Using the context of the problem, I am 95% confident based on my data I'm telling the reader my type 1 error probability, and it's data based. 95% confident based on my data that the proportion of Republican voters in favor of Hot Topic differs from the Democrats. So context of the problem, and that's it for this lesson. That was a two-sided large sample proportion test.